So thank you once again, everyone, for attending. Really appreciate it. Today's demonstration, today's webinar will be on document management and document automation. So we're going to cover a couple different things during today's call, namely the document automation and management. So we're going to start with document automation and that document creation process and discuss things like document templates and intake forms and how custom fields are used for that. We're also going to talk about how to use Zola Suite in terms of document management, not just organization, but using our tools like zDrive, zEditor, and the Word plugin for document editing, versioning, and other tools. We'll round out the call with other items such as searching, as well as sharing those documents via our Caseway client portal. All right, since we have a lot to cover, let's go ahead and dive in. So here on my screen, I do have a test environment pulled up. I'm going to head up to the top right corner, and you do need to have administrative rights to have the firm settings option shown here. If you don't, please speak with your firm administrator so that you can either gain that access or they can coordinate with you on that task. From firm settings, you're going to head over to custom fields and intake forms. And from here, you'll have the opportunity to create custom fields of different kinds, either on your matter level or you'll also have the intake form area. I'm waiting for my computer to catch up here a little bit. So here you'll see at the top under our custom fields header, we have a matter fields as well as person and company fields. So a matter field would be something like if you needed additional identifiers, if you needed specific data points. So for example, something like family law, maybe you need to ask the number of children in that marriage. However, something contact-based person versus company, maybe the person you'll ask for things like a social security number, where a company field, you may ask for something like a business license ID, EIN numbers, things like that. Again, completely customizable based on your needs. In using document management, document automation, you'll see a theme throughout that a lot of these items are going to be organized by practice area, and that begins here. The person fields here, again, kind of the example we just talked about, and company fields as well. Switching over to intake forms, this is going to give you a form builder tool. We have a great self-help video here on the top in the header row, where you could go ahead and hit the plus sign on the top right corner, and it's going to give you that form builder tool. You're going to go ahead and give that form a name. I'm just waiting for it to load up here. So we'll call it the adoption application intake. You'll assign it to a practice area. So here we'll do family law. And down underneath, you're going to see that add and edit capabilities as part of this form builder. From here, you're going to select the type of field that you're going to use going forward. A very common one is something like the text field, where you might be asking for things like names or a line of text. I'll use name as an example today. So once we drag that field over, it switches over to the edit field options, where I can now start building out this field for the intake form. Our label is currently untitled. That's just a placeholder. And that first row is where you're going to put in what the question or ask is. So in this case, we're going to say full government name. And in our longer description, this is where you could add in more specific instructions or an example. So here I might add a little note. Please do not use any aliases. In creating these fields on the form, you will be asked whether or not they should be a required field. You'll also have options for things like adding or adjusting the size. So by default, it'll start as small. We could expand it to medium, or large being the length of the page. You could add some parameters in addition to this, such as minimum characters or words, or maximum characters or words. Another great example of a commonly used custom field is something like a drop-down or a multiple choice. Again, you're going to have that placeholder label of untitled. You're going to update it accordingly. Again, make sure you designate whether it's required or not and include your option. So here I'm going to say it was a religious ceremony versus a justice of the peace or civil ceremony. In many of these types of fields, you'll also see an option for other or a blank, where somebody could kind of fill in an option that doesn't cleanly meet the options provided. When all is said and done, you're going to go ahead and save those fields into the form. You'll get confirmation that the form was successfully added. It will now list out in your form settings. Bear with me, I'm just waiting for the computer to load. There we go. And when I scroll down under family law, here is my adoption intake form. And if I ever had to, I could come back in and edit this form. Now, the one thing I will mention with regards to custom fields and intake forms that is absolutely pertinent. When you're using these fields and forms, you can come in and add and edit these items. They do not automatically backfill. So if you have an existing matter, while the field will now be present, you would have to go back in and update to meet that field that now exists. The other caveat is deletion, and I can't emphasize this enough. If you are editing an existing field or form, let us know that you have the need to delete this off the field or form. We want to make sure we avoid any data loss. So in using the delete function, you could certainly remove a field. So here I'm just going to quickly take off the type of wedding. And I'm only comfortable doing this because I know there is no data present as an answer to that question. If there is any chance there is data that is part of that question that somebody may have answered, there's that custom field that somebody may have filled in, don't take the chance. We can check to see if there is any data. Make sure that we keep that data integrity, make sure you're not losing it inadvertently. All right. I'm going to head out to our matter now. Now, I already have one, looks like my screen jumped here, so let me try this again. I'm going to head out to our matter. And in our matter area, this is going to be the point of entry for things like your document templates, your document management, document sharing. Now here I have loaded up a test case. It just has my matter number as my reference. This may look different in your respective databases. And I'm going to use that as my means of accessing the matter. From here, I do have some basic fields filled out. So matter name, matter number, who's the client, the practice area. And as the screen loads, we'll see custom fields momentarily. There we go. Now, in using your matters, custom fields are part of that record set. So where possible, when you're doing the document automation, document templates, intake forms, try to use a matter that has data already present or create a test matter and populate it as much as possible. This is going to give you the best starting point, and I'll showcase this in a moment. Before I do that showcase, I do just want to fill in a field or two here so that we have that available in my demonstration. So here we have an adverse party, and we're going to put Dunder Mifflin in as that adverse party. And we're going to say the date of marriage is this time last year. All right, so now that we have a little bit more data there, I feel comfortable going through this demonstration. I'm going to head down to the Documents tab of the matter. In looking at the Documents area, we start with the Documents list. So you'll see two sub-tabs here, Documents and Document Templates. Documents is the default because this is the central repository. This is where anything you have brought into the database will live, whether you dragged and dropped it in, maybe you did an upload, maybe it came over as an attachment from an email, but this is going to be that central platform. You'll also see document templates as a secondary sub-tab. And this is where you'll have the opportunity to add templates that you've created, and we'll go through that exercise as well, and use them to create a new document. Looking at the Documents tab, I do want to talk a little bit about adding to the database, organizing, because that does trip some people up. So in using the Documents tab here, there are generally 3 ways to add to the database. The first one is a simple drag and drop. I'm on a device I don't normally use, so I'm going to see if I can grab something here. My apologies, having a little bit of difficulty dragging something in. So we're going to forego that at the moment. However, we do have some pre-existing documents. So let me start by downloading that real quick. There we go. So now it's local on my device. I could open it, I can make changes, and I could use this to drag and drop in. So as I'm dragging over, you will see that little plus sign there, and you'll see drop documents here as a pan over. Once I let go of my mouse, I get my upload screen, and this is going to showcase what I'm looking to add to the database. Whether this is an entire folder with documents contained therein, or it is a single item, you'll still be met with this upload review screen. Upon saying upload, it's going to do a duplicate check. And in this case, it's going to look at the title and it's returned that I do have this document with an identical name already in the database. It's going to ask me if I want a new version of my existing document or a new separate document, in which case I'll have to alter the name. For today's example, I'm going to use the new version option. I'm going to go ahead and complete that upload. And you'll see we now have version 3 of that document. Another way is through the bulk upload on the top right corner here in our purple banner. This is helpful, especially if you're picking and choosing from different locations. So this is where I could go ahead and say select the file. I'm going to go to my downloads folder and grab that item and bring it in. Again, it's going to go through that same duplicate check, and I'm going to have the option to pick a new document or new version. In this example, I'm going to alter the name, and we'll call it version 4. And make it a new separate document. In that case, it's now going to be a separate document. So even though here's versions 1 through 3, I've indicated this should be parsed out. The third way is using those document templates. Now I do have one already in the system, and I will showcase right after how to create those templates. But for purposes of getting documents in and using them, I just want to focus on that use case. So here we're going to switch over to our document templates. It's going to default to the practice area we're already in, but you can display from other practice areas and grab those other items.
Grab that letter and generate that form, or excuse me, generate that template. Upon saying I want to generate, and I'm going to use the link on the right. It's going to offer me the opportunity to rename, and it's going to offer me the opportunity to save in a different location. For today's call, we're going to save it back as a Zola doc. All right. Now that we have that created, we got our confirmation banner, and I'm now going to head back over to our Documents tab, where we can now see that template after it's been created. From here, I can now preview this document and see, do I need to make any alterations or updates? The one thing I want to also mention as we go through the document templates talk is there will be a placeholder. So as you're using those merge fields to create the templates that will add data where possible, if there is no data present, it's going to leave the merge field there as a placeholder. Again, this is why, as a best practice, we recommend using a closed matter that has a lot of data present, or using a test matter that you populate as much as possible. All right, before we switch into document templates and document automation, because that's going to be a lengthy conversation, lengthy part of the conversation, I do want to just take a quick pause and see if we have any questions or comments. All right, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A or the chat, so I'm going to continue on. But do know that as we go through today's call, I will be checking in at regular points, as well as have full Q&A at the end. Please do not hesitate to utilize the Q&A or chat functions to communicate during this webinar. All right, so heading into more of our document automation and intake forms, looking at that part of document management, you will head over to the document templates tab. And as I mentioned, it's going to pre-sort by the practice area. So in this case, we're in firm administration, so it will start there, but you can expand out and reach out to other practice areas for documents. In creating a document template, this could be done with a blank Word document or a PDF form with the form filler function. You're going to switch over from document templates to merge fields. This is going to give you that coding that is going to be the basis of the template. If you're coming from another platform, you may already have templates set up. You may already be using them. However, you may have to update those templates to have the Zola version of that field so that it will be honored. It's not necessarily something that translates all the time. So here, a great example, we have our firm information. So we have our firm name, some address information, our matter basics, what's the name of the matter, what's the matter number, who's the attorney. You'll also see matter-related contacts. So in this case, we only have the one, it's the client, but it does bring in any information from their contact card. So name, address, phone numbers, emails. If you have documents that use pronouns, specifically contracts or agreements, you want to make sure that that contact contains a salutation, as that is going to be the trigger for those pronouns. Intake forms we'll talk about next. Right now we don't have anything available, but I will come back to this. And our matter custom fields, I had filled out those 2 fields at the beginning of the call. And even though we have a large list on the top right here, it's only displaying the fields in our list that have a value. Again, this is why I can't emphasize enough. We want to make sure that we are using something that has as much data as possible. Same idea here with our contact custom fields. If the contact card doesn't have a value in that custom field, it will not display. From here, I already have Word open. We're going to just go ahead and start populating that document with some of these merge fields. So here, bear with me. My Microsoft decided to cut in. We are going to just have some text and have a couple of fields to get started. So as I'm going through this, I just put a starting text. This is a new document for the purposes of this webinar, and I'm going to go ahead and add those merge fields. In order to avoid human error, we try to make it easy by having a copy to clipboard button here on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the firm name, and I'm going to paste that into my Word document here. Oops, bear with me. There we go. And I'm going to grab 1 or 2 more fields. So I'll grab our Dunder Mifflin, and I'm going to switch back. And last one is that date. Oops, my apologies. There we go. So now that we have those fields in place, now the real fun can begin. Again, these are placeholders so that if there is a value present in the database, it will translate, it will update to reflect that data. Now that we have those in Word, we could really start the formatting and any kind of finessing of that document. So things like a header or a footer. In your header area, this is where you might have a firm letterhead image that outlines the list of attorneys, address information, phone numbers, emails, things like that. In the body, this is where you could highlight a text and start putting some of that data to good use. So here we have our firm name. We're going to go ahead and make it a bold item. We're going to take this middle one, our adverse party. We're going to make them italicized. And this last one, we're going to go ahead and make it a different color. Okay, so now that we have those items in place, I'm going to just go ahead and save that here, and we'll bring it into Zola. Oops, so here's our Zola doc. My apologies, I used the wrong save. And save. Now we're going to head back to Zola one more time because we now need to take our Word document and bring it into the database as a template so that we can use it repeatedly going forward. So here on the top right, as long as you're on the Document Templates tab, the Upload button here, while it looks identical to the one we just discussed, is going to regard this document in a different way. It's going to do a screen for those merge fields. I'm going to go ahead and select my document, open that up, assign it to a practice area. So we're going to put firm administration for this and save our template. Now, when it did that first screen, when we did the upload before it asked us for a practice area, that's where it's doing that screen for the merge fields. Now that our template is available, it's immediately available because we assigned it to the practice area we were already in. And I'm now going to go through that generation process once again. So in creating that template, we put our merge fields as placeholders so that if there is a value present, in which case in this our example, we know that there's going to be values there, and we'll get those converted over. So here again, same name, it's doing that dupe check. We're going to say do a new version, and we're going to save it to Zola. When I open this up for preview, this is now going to showcase that translated version of the document. So here, oops, let me try this again. My apologies, had a little bit of a technical issue here. Let me try this one more time. Generate, oh, bear with me, sorry. Make sure we have the fields present. Oh, let's copy those in. Let's try this one more time. My apologies, guys. Put that on our desktop. We're going to delete this copy out because we had an error with it. So we're going to delete that template. And we're going to go through that upload one more time. So select your file. In this case, we're going to go over to our desktop, grab our document that we know has those merge fields, bring them in, and save that template. I'm going to go ahead and do that generation one more time. Save it back to Zola. And upon previewing, we should have our fields, and it will honor that formatting, it will honor that spacing. Another caveat in using that formatting in Word is when you're going through that exercise of things like spacing and formatting, bold, italicized, underline, font sizes, anything like that. Some of the things that you will take from Word will not be available in Zola. So for example, a date field, that's something you'll use Word for. While there are dates in Zola, things like a creation date, you could have as a merge field in the template, but it's going to come from Word. Just like our formatting, it's going to come from Word and not from Zola. The purpose of the merge fields in Zola is really to take the data you already have and put it in a specific location. All right. Before we head into intake forms, I do just want to take a quick pause and see if there were any questions or comments relative to the creation of the document template, which we just discussed. All right, not seeing anything in the Q&A or the chat, so going to continue on. But again, please know that those are at your disposal. So here, now that we have our documents in place, we have them organized, let's talk a little bit about some of the tools you have in Zola for managing the documents editing the documents and sharing the documents. Now in this document area, we do have our matter number as our root or primary folder. A simple right click will allow you to create folders and subfolders. And heading back up to that root folder, we're going to have our list of documents, and I could do a simple drag and drop to move those items into a different location. In looking at this list, you also have filters on the top left for what you've contributed to the database or organized through the database, as well as what a client would share with you via the Caseway portal, and we'll come back to this shortly. In looking at this list, when I pan over the row, it's going to display certain information as well as options. So working left to right, we have our check mark to make a selection. If you select more than one document, you will be met with a multi-select tool, and we'll review that momentarily. You also have the pardon me, I had an audio issue there. You do have the priority star here, so this is going to let you favorite this item. You'll see an icon on the left here that should tie out with which type of document it is. So it'll be a generic icon for Word, Adobe, PowerPoint, etc. The name of your document with a version number. And if I click into something that has multiple versions, I could see the history or chronology of that document and revert back to earlier versions. You'll also have a comment bubble here, so if you need to put any specific information about this document on file for everyone's benefit. So here I could say something like, do not use this copy. There we go. It will be filled from a light gray to a dark gray so that it indicates that there is a comment here and somebody could click in and see that information. As I pan over to the right, as I move over towards the other fields, it's going to now pan over and pop up with those action items we can now take in editing or working through that document. So we touched a little bit upon that preview. It does open a browser-based previewer where I can view essentially a PDF equivalent of the document. And from this previewer, I can have a page navigator. I could zoom in and out. I could crop, rotate, as well as stack. On the right here, we also have options for printing and downloading outside of Zola. While you're in the preview area, you could jump from document to document the same way you could on the previous screen, but rather than having to leave and come back in, if you're just doing a quick preview, this is going to be a great time saver. Our next option is opening with zDrive. For PC users, you have the option of zDrive and the word ribbon. Both of those plugins are accessible here on the top right. If you are a Mac user, zDrive is going to be your plugin of choice. They offer the same benefit, take something from the Zola Cloud temporarily, brings it local to your Word application, lets you make your changes, and then sends it back to the cloud. Here, I'm going to go ahead and open this document with zDrive. I do want to just note this is version 1, and I want to showcase the versioning as we go through this. So here, going to open with zDrive. It's going to ask me which application. I'm going to say yes, use zDrive. This is my first time. It's then going to kick that document over to the zDrive plugin and let me open it with our Word application. So it did just prompt me real quick for my credentials. You can save these. I'm on a temporary device, so I did not save those credentials. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see if our computer's just catching up. And we'll get a little notification here. There we go. Document is ready to edit. I'm going to click that open. Word will then take into effect. And we can now see this document. So from here, I could go ahead and make any changes. So I'm going to add another line of text. And in my case, because I'm on a PC, I'm not going to use the Microsoft floppy disk. Zola's plugin has its own, so I will showcase that momentarily. So here we just have a quick shortcut. I'm going to go ahead and save that in. In my case, I didn't have my credentials set, so it's going to ask me for them once again before it finalizes that save. I'm going to log in. And when you do a save or whether it's a versioning or it's doing an initial save, you're going to be met with this screen. From here, your first dropdown is your matter list. The second one is that folder tree or folder expand. So we have a backslash, we have our folders, documents, documents, and letters. I'm going to put it in documents specifically. And down here we have our document name. Now, I can't alter the name. The one thing I will caution is you should, where possible, keep that extension of DOCX. This way, as you work through it going forward, it knows to reference Word as opposed to another application. So here I'm going to alter this all together and say, this is our zDrive document. I did note here that it is a new document, not a new version of the existing document, so we'll parse it out. I could also add tagging, so if this was a specific type of document, like a letter, I could add that tag in at this time. When I go ahead and hit save, it's going to do this upload. It's going to send it back to the Zola cloud. And even if I do no other actions here, when I come back to my list of documents here in Zola, I have version 2 of that document. Now, when I look at the versioning here, it's going to show me that data. It's going to show me some of that information. Who was the author? When was it edited? When was it uploaded? And I can make an earlier copy current. In using the zDrive plugin, once the credentials are in and you can remember them so you don't have to log in every time like I did, you will see the open and save buttons. A great shortcut here is if you use shortcuts or buttons here within the Word application, you should have the ability to customize your toolbar. You could go under More Commands, Zola Suite tab, and add those open and save to that ribbon. It's going to replace the Microsoft floppy disk, but the benefit there is you're not going to confuse yourself or the system. If you use that floppy disk, it's going to try to save it to your computer or possibly to OneDrive as opposed to the Zola cloud. If you use the Zola specific save, it's going to look for your Zola credentials and you'll be met with that window where it's going to ask you where in the Zola cloud it should reside. Same idea for opening. Let me back out here for a second. I'm going to go ahead and close this document altogether. So bear with me. I'm going to go up to File, and we're going to close this out altogether. So I'm still in my Word application. I closed the document that we were just in so that I could demonstrate how you could open from within Word without the necessity of your browser. So here I'm going to go ahead and say open. It's going to remember my last location, so it's going to find that letter. I can make that selection and say open. And just like we did with that save, it's kind of doing it in reverse. We're taking it back down from the cloud. We're opening it up in our Word application. So you do have that bidirectional exchange, same as with zDrive. Another editing tool that we have is our Open with Z editor. This is fantastic if you are on the go and you have simple changes that are needed, spell checking, adding text, removing text. This is a browser-based editor similar to something like a Microsoft Word Online. This is going to allow you the ability to do those basic functions, the add, the edits, the changes. This does include formatting and tools like tables and linking. However, you don't have some of the more advanced features. So if you're looking for things like document comparison, redlining, those won't necessarily be available in this editing tool. But here I can come back in. I'm going to go ahead and make this bold. Oh, excuse me. Make this bold and change the font size. And you'll see as I'm making these changes, I'm going to make one more. If you could look here to the bottom right with our Save Document button, you'll see a flashing saving floppy disk. And the benefit of this is 3 things are happening at the same time. The first one is as I make every single change, it's doing a temporary save back to the cloud. This minimizes data loss, so if I lose my internet connection or my laptop dies, I'm not worried that I have lost everything altogether. It has a billing timer running, so I could now close this document out and bill for the time I spent making my changes. And down at the bottom right, when I close out, it's going to version my document. One thing that sometimes trips people up is if you say save document, it's going to version the document. So here we're on, I think, version 2. I'm going to go ahead and save my document. It will do a full save, sync it back to the internet. So now we're on version 2, presumably. And when I close out and I say save here, I'm now at version 3, but it's going to continue that versioning for you. I'm going to go ahead and close that tab now that all my changes are saved. And when I refresh, we're now 2 more saves in advance. So we're now at version 4 instead of 3 because I was starting at 1. But this is going to give you that versioning, same idea. When I click on that version number, I'll be able to see what the changes were, how they were changed, and get them back. All right, we always have the opportunity to download. The download function also exists here on the top right. So especially if you're doing a more heavy-duty document download for things like, say, an exhibit package, medical records, you can download based on the entire matter or a specific subfolder. This is something that is logged, so you can view what has been exported at any time. Under more actions, and pardon me, let me just adjust my screen here real quick. You will have a pop-up menu that's going to offer you some additional functionalities. So from here, I can take my Word document and convert it to a PDF. I do not need Word. I do not need Adobe. It is built into Zola Suite. What I do need is to confirm the name of my new PDF. And now we have our PDF equivalent. I can lock and download the document. This is really helpful in terms of document editing, as this is going to allow me to take a personal copy, make my changes, and bring them back when I'm ready. In the interim, a little lockbox will display, and if somebody pans over that lockbox, they can see who's making the edits at this time. But it's going to essentially check the document out so you can warn others, please don't try to edit at the same time as me. I'm currently working on this. I'll bring it back when I can. You also have emailing as an attachment, pretty self-explanatory, but from here I can grab my item. It will, because of I'm starting from within the matter, it already has that matter association, and down on the bottom left of my email body, I will see that document. We have our share via Caseway. So as promised, I will talk about Caseway. Caseway is our secure client portal. It is really great for exchanging documents with clients and other parties. It is secure. And as part of that security, when you're doing that exchange, it's coming right into the Documents tab of the matter. It is not sitting in an inbox. It is not easily communicable. So you would have to have permission to the matter in order to access those documents. And in that regard, also anything communicated by Caseway. If you're sharing out, let's say you were wanting to send a retainer agreement or they're asking for very sensitive information, I could share this out. I'm going to pick the contact. I could even put a personalized message. Please call me this afternoon. And it's going to confirm the contact information we have on file. It is warning me that the person may have already been registered. So there is a protocol in place so that if they are registered or they've been invited but have not completed registration, we could help them through that. But for today's example, I'm going to go ahead and hit share. Oops. Email is already in the system here. I'll use my personal email. Bear with me. My apologies. Looks like we're having a little bit of a technical hiccup here. But what will happen is you'll have a little person icon that's going to appear next to the comment bubble. And this is going to allow you to see who the document was shared with, as well as revoke access if you ever had to. On the client side, they have the portal on their side. They're going to go to zolacaseway.com. Looks a little something like this. They're going to put in their respective credentials, so they're going to be the same email you have on your contact card plus whatever password they set, and they'll have the ability to log in and upload back to the system. One of the other added bonus benefits of Caseway is it is intuitive, it is smart. So if you have a client that has multiple matters, as many do, you'll be able to differentiate that this document belongs to one specific matter over the other. As mentioned in our zDrive plugin, or excuse me, our Word plugin, you do have the ability to tag your document. So if you want to add a keyword or phrase to better identify the document or find it, so here we'll call this a letter. I will update that document and it's going to add a little tag here. And now I can search by that tag. So any other document on this matter that has that same tag. And the way I know that it's looking for it that way is because if I open up my advanced search criteria, that letter tag is going to be identified as that search criteria. Bear with me 1 second. Let's back out. One of the last items we have here. Oh, sorry, my screen is not playing nice. Sorry, let's try this one more time. There we go, more actions. You do also have the option to move or copy to a matter. Now, when it says to a matter, it means another matter, not the same matter. But in that example, whether I'm moving or copying, it's going to ask me for a destination. It's going to ask for a separate matter. I'm going to move it if it's a lateral move from this matter to that matter, or if I leave move toggled off and say update, it's going to copy to that second location. One of the other features I want to talk about is the upload new version. This works relative to the lock and download feature. This is also really helpful if you have a manual add. So if you're dealing with something like contracts or agreements, you could add a specific upload to that document that already exists. So you put in version 1, they came back with version 2. You can marry those two documents using upload new version. So you're going to grab that download, grab that attachment, bring it in, and make sure that they're associated. All right, as we're winding down on the document management, the last thing I want to touch on here is the multi-select tool. So if I grab more than one item, I'm going to get that magenta multi-select tool. And I'm going to be able to repeat some of those same actions we saw under more actions in and across multiple items. The one thing that you won't have unless you're using the bulk action or multi-select tool is the ability to merge into a portfolio document. This is amazing, especially for litigation firms. This is going to let you take different documents, regardless of type, and bring it in to merge it into one big PDF. So here we have our two documents selected. I can drag and drop up or down to reorder those documents. I'm going to give my document a name, so we'll call this Litigation Binder 1. I can overlay my page numbering, and this is just going to do a general 1 through whatever. I want to be clear, this is not the same as bait stamping, so you cannot customize the coding. This is for plaintiff, this is for defendant, anything like that. It's just going to be a revamp or a refurbish of those page numbering. I could download it outside of Zola, or I could bring it right back into Zola and save it to a specific location. Last but not least, as part of this whole process, as I'm putting it together, I could end this workflow by attaching it to a new email after I've saved this item in. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and that's going to go through the entire workflow. So we're creating a PDF with both items, we're overlaying our page numbering, we're saving it to our matter, and we're going to start an email. So lots done in one workflow. And because I said end with that saved email, it goes right into that email composure with our new binder here. And when I load up my preview, I could see our different pages. So here you'll see on the top left, page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2. All right. Before we head into one of our last topics, which is document searching, I do want to just take a quick pause, check in, and see if we have any questions, any concerns, any comments. It's been rather quiet so far, so hopefully that means I'm doing a good job in showcasing these features to you. All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat or the Q&A, so going to continue on as we're rounding into the hour. So going to talk a little bit about searching across the database. Now, the primary search is going to be the universal search or global search. That's going to be the magnifying glass here on the top right. So bear with me as I adjust my screen a little bit. And this is going to open up a search bar where I can put in an identifier to get me to this document. So maybe I put in something like webinar. This is going to give me a pick list of things that it thinks I should be looking at, those record types. And when we get to our search results, it's going to parse them out or organize them by the record type. So matters, events, tasks, and down towards the bottom, my documents. So that's where I'm going to find documents like the one we did today. Let's see if I can find it here in the mix. My apologies, doesn't look like it. So just gonna keep on. But the point of the matter is you will have a link to that document. You could access it going forward from this search result. This is a global search, so it's gonna give you a little bit of everything. So you may get more than you anticipated. Another search is going to be the documents dashboard here on the navigation pane. This is looking at all documents across the entire database. However, it's just looking at documents, where the global search is looking at all record types. So that's why it has to be organized by the record type: matters, tasks, calendar, events, its documents, etc. This search is super helpful for anything having to do with, say, an ambiguous term or a general starting point. So here I could go ahead and say my term is webinar, search it, and it's going to yield the documents that we have. It's going to showcase a link to the document itself, the versioning, the matter. It's also going to give me a matching snippet on the right here where I could see the context in which the term is going to appear. And as I go through the search, I could make it a little bit more finite. So I could say only do it if it pertains to the, where's our matter? Here's our matter. Only give me documents relative to matter 1030.001 and kind of drill in that way. There's an address line on the top left, so if I have to, I can back out to my search results, and it will remember the last term used until you complete another search. From this dashboard, you do have a repeat of some of the functionality we saw on the matter, so I could click into the document. I could also take some of those additional actions like emailing or sharing. In terms of Caseway, anything that may have been communicated to the firm to that matter, if you have access to that matter, you'll have a shortcut here where you can see that document that had been brought into the database that was communicated. And while it will reside on the matter, you'll have a shortcut here as well. Okay, and then I do see some questions coming in, so just going to cover the matter level search real quick, and we will address those questions. All right, so here on the matter level, we have our our matter. Once again, we're going to go into the documents tab of that matter. And because we're starting with the matter, it is going to be a little bit more specific and a little bit fewer results because we're being very specific in where we are searching and how we are searching. So here we have that documents tab, and we do have a search bar here where I could search through just this series of documents regardless of folder or location on the matter. And I have that same search criteria that we saw on the dashboard here on the matter level as well. The documents are, if you see the green check mark here, the documents are indexed or OCR'd. So where possible, you want to make sure you check for that green check mark. And in having that check mark, it's going to look at not just the title of the document, but it's always going to try to check for the contents of the document as well to meet those search criterias. All right, I hope you found today's webinar helpful. We're coming up on the end of the call and at the end of the agenda for today. So I'm going to switch it over to our Q&A section and try to address some of the questions coming in. So the question we have on deck right now, you have zDrive and OneDrive. Is there a way to save documents directly in Zola without one of those? Yes, absolutely. So you can do a drag and drop into the browser, and that will get your document there as well. And then you would use it as use the zDrive or the other plugins as a means of access. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and grab my document from the desktop here. Bear with me 1 second. Go to our desktop, and we're going to grab our webinar document. I'm sorry, I think I clicked one too many times. It's going to open. Close that real quick. There we go. So let me minimize that. I'm just going to grab it from my location. So here I have a little Windows Explorer window here on the right. I'm just going to drag it over my browser. You'll see that copy, that plus sign. You'll also see when you drop it in the area where the documents are listed, it says drop documents here. So when you do that, it's going to, and you release your mouse, it's then going to start with that upload prompt so you can save that copy through the browser. You don't need zDrive, you don't need Word plugin necessarily, but depending on your starting point, depending on your personal workflow and your preferences, those do come in very handy. Okay, let's head back to our Q&A, see if we have any other questions. All right, it looks like that was our only question, at least at this time. No chats at this time. But again, I do encourage you, if you do have any questions or concerns, please use the Q&A to let us know what that is. If you need anything going forward, you could certainly reach out to the team and I. I'm part of the onboarding team, so I'll throw my contact information in the chat here. The best way to reach me if you have training needs or if you have questions or concerns is to shoot an email to onboarding@zolasuite.com, and this goes to a team of onboarding specialists and trainers, and from there we could then communicate and address those needs. All right, so I'm going to just put out a last call for any last minute questions or concerns before we stop recording today's webinar. The webinar will be available tomorrow afternoon once we get that recording out and available. But again, do please, if you have any questions or concerns, any training needs, please reach out to the onboarding team and we will certainly work with you that way. It's been a pleasure speaking with you this afternoon. Hope you found today's webinar helpful. Thank you again for attending.